Hello and welcome to Link Ahead, the City of Dublin podcast. And Bruce, you've been here more than 23 years now.
Yes.
You know how our Dublin residents think pretty darn well. What would you say people love about Dublin?
Let's talk about streets, their safety, their services. Talk about facilities that you have, the rec center, all the parks that we have, down in Bridge Park, Riverside Crossing. There's so much innovation and things that people love about Dublin, and I love sitting here and we talk about a lot of that stuff all the time.
Right, and that's a pretty good list you got going there. So how do we pay for all of those things?
I'm glad you asked because I know the answer to this. Income tax.
Income tax. Good answer. That's right. Our 2% income tax on Dublin businesses and the people who work here. So I know some people might dread tax time, but when you think about all of the great things that come out of those tax dollars, it's really kind of exciting when you think about it.
And the star of tax season is here. Dublin Director of Taxation, Tammy Leonard, is here with us today. Tammy, welcome to Link Ahead.
Thank you for having me.
Tammy, we're really happy to have you here because it's a really important topic. It can be a confusing topic. And honestly, it's a relatable topic because most of us have to file our taxes every year. So we're all in the same boat, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And that's actually a great place to start. So tell us who all has to file taxes in the city of Dublin?
It's a great question and one we get a lot. So everybody that lives here in the city of Dublin that's over the age of 18 must file with the city of Dublin. Also, if you do business here, if you sell real estate here, all the profits from those sales are required to be reported to Dublin.
And you're bringing us some great news today because here in Dublin, we've made it easier than ever to file your taxes. We've launched a new and improved e-filing system this year. A couple questions about that. How is this system better?
Well, first and foremost, we've made it easier to actually get into the system while still maintaining a high level of security. Most of our calls last year revolved around not being able to add your spouse. We are happy to announce you can now add your spouse to your account. And if you don't have an account, you can create your own account. Again, no need to call our office. Overall, it's just a more user-friendly layout, and I think residents and non-residents will find it much easier to use. 2023 is going to be the first year that we will accept refunds electronically for both residents and non-residents.
That's a big one.
It is really big. We're super excited about that. So I highly encourage anybody who has to file with Dublin to e-file. And last, it stays on postage.
Great.
I don't even, how much is a stamp now?
I have
no idea.
And I do remember the days on, April 15th when you would see lines at the post office. And I was wondering, is that still a thing?
Well, I remember a couple tax directors ago would be like, hey, who wants to help carry this in? And we'd have volunteers in the city to help haul the loot in.
That's true. We bought a cart this year.
Oh, there you go. So Bruce, you're off the hook. But with these changes, what about people who have e-filed with us before? Do they need a new account or a new online profile or anything like that?
No, there's no need to create a new profile. You will just need your last name, the last 4 digits of your social, and the house digits from your home address.
Then we kind of touched on this earlier, but what other ways can people file?
They, of course, can always file on paper. We will always accept paper returns, which they can either mail or they can drive up to our secure drop box and drop them off. Or we offer a service where anybody can come in and we will do the return at no charge right at our tax window.
So let's tick through some numbers here. Last year, your team collected over $107 million in tax revenue, processed nearly 6,000 e-file returns, and processed more than 4,000 refunds and credit returns. So you have a team of 150 people with you to do all this?
Oh, I wish.
So talk to us. How has this happened?
Well, I have a great staff. I'm very happy to lead them. We have a staff, with myself included, of 7, and we have been severely understaffed for the last year. So I'm super proud of the 4 core members that we had to lead us in 23 to do all those wonderful things. And they all do it with wonderful customer service. They like to pride us in saying that we have not really had any complaints. Most of all of our feedback is always positive. How kind and polite our staff is.
Well, you are so kind, and maybe that's why people want to come and file in person. Is that why? One of the things that surprised me when looking into this is you processed 6,000 e-file returns last year and 20,000 paper returns. That's kind of surprising. I think I would have thought most people filed electronically, but that's not the case.
That's correct. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast, to let everybody know about the benefits of e-filing so that we can get more e-filed returns this year and years in the future. Yeah, it's a lot to deal with the paper. And as we want to continue to be a sustainable global city of choice, we want to make sure that we cut down on the paper. And so let's e-file.
You're probably saving on Band-Aids too, because you have to get paper cuts, right?
Absolutely. Lots of paper cuts.
All around. It's more secure, it's more sustainable, it's the way to go. We also wanted to point out that our income tax rate is lower than most of the surrounding neighbors, like Upper Arlington, Hilliard, Worthington, Gahanna, just to not name names, but name names. So that's something people should know. And broadly, of those income tax revenues, 75% goes to the general fund, 25 goes to capital improvements, all those things the residents love, right, Bruce?
Right.
High level, Tammy, can you explain the differences here?
Yeah, sure, of course. The general fund is basically our day-to-day operations, and obviously the capital improvement fund is just basically in the name, continue to make this city a great place to live, work, and grow, improving on all the things that Dublin residents want in this wonderful city that we have here.
Now, let's dive into that part that can be confusing. There are income taxes, which is what we're talking about here today, and then there are property taxes. Can you broadly explain the differences between the two?
Sure, of course. This is a question we get a lot. We get a lot of calls for property tax.
We do too, actually.
Yeah.
And emails and
Right.
messages on social media.
So income tax is based on your earned income. And I like to describe that as the sweat of your brow, something you have to do to earn the money. And that mainly comes from employer withholding. Any Dublin business that has employees is required by law, unless you work for the Dublin Post Office. And that's just a little joke for my Dublin Post Office friends. They're required to withhold the 2% tax on all qualifying wages earned by their employees while they're working here in Dublin. That tax always stays with the city where it's withheld. There's no reciprocity between cities. So the income tax money that is paid where you work stays where you work.
So, Tammy, that's great, the amount that we're getting in returns. Now, there's been a shift since COVID of people not driving to a business to work. That people are working from home. So how does that all work out?
That's a great question, one we get a lot. The legislators decided as of 1/1/22, the employers had to go back to the old way of doing things. And if wherever the employee is working, that is where the tax is to be withheld. So if you're working from your home, whether it's full-time, hybrid schedule, the days that you spend working from home, your employer is now required to withhold that location. And then the days that you spend in the office, they're required to withhold that location. That has created some additional work for the employers, but that's better for all the cities to manage their revenue and know when the influx is coming in with the revenue. So that funds the day-to-day operations and the capital improvement, which we just spoke about. Whereas property tax is administered by one of the three Dublin counties, Franklin, be it Franklin, Union, or Delaware. And that's used to fund things like schools and anything else that the county needs. Now, I do want to point out that, yes, the county does give us a very small portion of the property tax that they collect, but we have no say in the administration of that, the collection of that, and most unfortunately, we don't have anything to do with the very much talked about valuation changes that are currently going on, unfortunately. I always try to approach it that, I'm a homeowner too, and I'm in the same boat, and I feel horrible for them. And I've done a lot of research on my own on this topic, and so I always share whatever I have and current bills that are pending that the legislators are trying to help us with this. So I just always point them out to that, and then just always make them try to feel as good as they can about it, because we're all in the same boat, unfortunately, right now.
That's true. And a lot of residents may not realize this, but about 3/4 of Dublin residents actually work outside of our city. So the majority of income tax received by Dublin is from non-residents. It's for this reason that we're always, looking to develop our economy, right?
That's correct. Yep, we're always trying to bring businesses here to the city of Dublin because, like I said before, they're required to withhold on Dublin work. So the people that come here to work are paying 2% of their wages to our Dublin tax. It's also important to note that people may come here to work and love it so much because of the amenities Dublin has to offer that they may move here and share in the pride of being a Dublin resident. In my tax office, 4 out of the 5 people that we currently have staffed, they all do live in the city of Dublin.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Of course. Why wouldn't you want to
Yeah.
live in Dublin?
Yeah.
Now, Tammy, this is all spelled out in our Resident's Guide to Understanding Taxes, which is one of our most popular publications. It's
It
real
really
easy.
is.
Wow.
I mean,
Every year.
It's one of those no-brainers that after we put it together, we take it to every public meeting just so, hey, here's the basis. It's real easy to understand, and it's full of great information. You can find it on our website, dublinohiousa.gov/taxation. For residents who want to know more, they can read this or whatever. Where can they get those answers, Tammy?
Well, like you said, our website is full of information. But again, our staff is very friendly and they love to talk to people who call in. Our job is mainly, yes, we collect taxes, but we like to think of it as education. So we're educating the taxpayers, the residents, the non-residents on what local tax actually is and why we do what we do. And like I said, I can't take pride in my staff more by saying how personable they are and how they deliver such great customer service to anybody who calls.
So when you get these calls, and I'm sure you get this a lot, what are the most common tax mistakes?
Great question. I was preparing for this podcast today, so I asked the people with the boots on the ground, and I had my ideas in mind, but because I've been doing this for a very long time. So I asked the staff, what is the most common mistake? And resoundingly is claiming full credit for other city withholding that's greater than 2%. That's limited. If you work in some place like Columbus or Worthington, they withhold 2.5%, but you can only claim 2% on your return. No refunds. Sorry, only 2%. And another common mistake is using the wrong wage figure. Local tax is all qualifying wages, and that is defined basically as the higher of box 5 or 18. Keep in mind they should be the same, but all qualifying wages. So, and let me just clarify that. When we say qualifying wages, when you contribute to your 401k or any type of deferral, that's usually exempt from federal tax because you're not paying on it now. But then when you retire, you do pay tax on it. Keep in mind that that's taxable as you earn it. But when you do retire, you won't have to pay tax on that retirement income.
For some reason, I thought you were going to say claiming pets as dependents. That's gonna be,
People do want to do that.
Yeah. Thankfully, we don't claim dependents on local returns.
right.
So going
That's
back
great.
to this e-filing, I'm wondering, are there prompts along the way that make it a little bit easier to not make these mistakes? Or, how does that work, or can it help?
Yeah, there's prompts. We are also working on a instructional video, since it is new. We're trying to come up with all the scenarios before we make that video live. So stay tuned for that. We're going to have a video up, most common mistakes, how to get around those mistakes, most common questions, and where you can get the answers to those questions.
Well, Tammy, you are a wealth of, pun intended, information and knowledge. So now let's see how you do with our always fun closing segment, Rapid Fire.
Rapid fire. I feel like we need a sound bite there for
Oh,
something that
yeah.
says rapid
do.
fire. All right. Sticking with the tax theme for a bit, which amendment to the Constitution grants Congress the right to impose a federal tax?
Well, that would be the 16th Amendment.
Everybody knows that.
Come on.
Come on. Giving her some softballs over here.
I will point out, though, fun fact on that 16th Amendment, it was February 3rd, 1913. So over 111 years ago this month.
Wow. Okay. Bonus follow-up question. One American city in a very small state typically clocks in at number 1 for highest state and local taxes. Can you name it?
I'm going to go with Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Bridgeport, kid. Yeah.
Wow.
Good. How did you know that? Do they teach this in tax school?
They teach it at Google.
Oh, there we go. There we go. All right. We've asked our accountants and budget experts this question before and have to ask you, are you good at math?
Absolutely.
Oh, I love it.
Love to sit around the table and do math problems with my daughter.
She's not joking either.
she's
I
not.
am
There's a
literally
smile.
not joking.
I could tell. There's no sarcasm there. So what was your hardest math class for you and why?
I would say geometry. It was so tough understanding the sine, cosine, tangent, all of that stuff. But I will say what made it challenging was I had the best teacher, but at the time I didn't realize it. And I hated the subject. So I would just sit there and he would call on me every single time. And I'm like, one time I even said, I don't know the answer.
No.
But he still just always called on me until by the end of the year I was doing very well in the class. And later on in college, when I had to take statistics and scored very high in that class, I wrote him a letter to tell him that I wouldn't have been able to pass that class without his help.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Shout out to Mr. Seipel at Hilliard Darby High School.
There you go.
When you tell someone your job title, the director of taxation, what's the most common reaction you get?
Crickets.
That was perfect timing.
Wow.
That was
No, seriously, there's differences. Sometimes it's intrigue. Sometimes it's like, oh, we don't want to mess with you, kind of thing. But we're not horrible. Again, my part of the job is to educate people. We're not here to be heavy hammers or anything like that. We want to make sure that everybody is doing the right thing and everyone's paying their fair share.
And I'm sure you get really popular this time of year when
We
people
do.
have new questions.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Do you have a hidden talent?
I'm not sure if it's a talent, but cooking. I love to cook.
All
Good.
right.
So,
Very practical, wonderful talent to
Yeah.
have.
oh, I love it.
All right, when it's not tax season and you have time to go out to lunch, what's your favorite spot to grab a bite?
Here in Dublin, I think it would be 101 Beer Kitchen. They have a really great chicken dish in the fall. It's a seasonal item, but it's so great. But to be honest with you, I'm a foodie. So any restaurant, any food, any potluck, I'm game for that.
Let's say you were going to get a really big tax refund this year. How would you blow it?
I would blow it on travel.
Oh, right. Oh, I'm so glad.
If I'm not cooking, I'm looking online to where I can book my next vacation.
Well, I had to say, how could you blow it? Because I didn't want you to say, well, you should invest it or something practical like that.
I wouldn't say that.
Tammy, we know you're very busy right now, and we thank you so much for joining us on Link Ahead.
Thank you so much for having me. And remember, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call our office. Give us a call at 614-410-4460. We have a great staff that's happy to answer any of your questions.
And to our listeners, thank you as well for taking time to connect with your city. Tune in next time as we continue to explore the many personalities and experiences that make Dublin a thriving place to live, work, and grow.